Now, this was the front page of the Daily Mail on Wednesday, the 28th of October, 2020. And although the splash words said tragedy in the channel, the Daily Mail didn't think that the tragedy was the main issue. It said that the ministers needed to stop the trade. That's not the right line legally, constitutionally, ethically to take. But that is the line that the Daily Mail took. Instead of saying one will ministers abide by the law, it says when will they stop the trade? Now the trade only exists because the government is breaking the law and refusing lawful ways for the asylum seekers and the migrants needing asylum to seek asylum without risking their lives. So long as there is no legal way to try to reach a destination of the asylum, whether it's UK or any other country, the people in most desperation will be forced to rely on the touts and the traffickers. It is not the case that Keir Starmer made this legal point that I'm making, or the case that I'm making. And most of the campaigners on the ground have made for a long time. So the Starmer agenda is to sink the difference between the Conservatives and the Labour Party and make the Labour Party more like the Conservatives. And it has suited him, it has suited Starmer's strategy and fantasy that the Inequality and Human Wrongs Commission perpetrated its biggest crime since it was confected by Hattie Harman with the complicity of the mental slave Trevor Terrible Phillips. Trevor Terrible Phillips. Hattie Harman and the Guardian's Polly Toynbee are the two white women who are on the record as calling Trevor Terrible Phillips as Trevor in public, as if he was part of their domestic arrangements, mental slave. Such contempt do these racists have for basic human rights and for international institutions like the United Nations Human Rights Commission and the International Convention on the Rights of Refugees, that they have not bothered to look again at the role that they have got their mental slave to play, despite the fact that in the absence of a genuinely half-decent monitoring organization looking at the behavior of the signatory state, the UK, in the context of its obligations, there is no way that there will be any accountability, let alone safety, for the people seeking asylum. And so we go back to the elected local borough council Tower Hamlets and use the evidence of its behavior to extrapolate the actual absence of accountability across the country, despite the fact that the entirety of the media on Sunday, Fleet Street media on Sunday, the cover price is £18.30 or £18.50. We shall check on the difference of 30 pence later. The entirety of the Fleet Street papers, in terms of news, is either given to the lockdown announced by Boris Johnson or to an over-the-top propaganda for the US kind of election. And there is no sign that any of that is being done to uphold universal values, let alone to link the behavior of Donald Trump with the loss of relevant credibility by various institutions and agencies that had been set up under the aegis of the United Nations organization. Any incumbent US president, notably Ronald Reagan, who is of the right-wing persuasions, is too eager to condemn international agencies like the Reagan attack on UNESCO kind of illustrated. Now, in our view, based entirely on the evidence of the behavior of these agencies, they are not only not radical, they are not even kind of compliant with the 10% of the requirements of the particular legislation under which they have been set up. And again, these charters and conventions and agreements are supposed to be part of the arrangement for local government delivering democracy to the local community by upholding the human rights and other rights of the people as, quote, enshrined in these declarations and statements. And there is none. As we have found, while investigating the operation of the corrupt mayor post, we looked for evidence of any recognition by the council, each council under mayoral kind of disaster, any recognition of the United Nations charters. There is none. Think about it. So when the Tower Hamlets Council spin says that Afsana Begum's being charged is in response to the council's kind of reply, to the response to the council's kind of being criticized by local people, the Tower Hamlets Council is too corrupt and it doesn't stop corruption and fraud. And it issued a statement which included the fact that the council is very seriously kind of interested in stopping kind of fraud and whatever, and allegations of fraud. And it says that in a reassuring kind of, in a sentence that has been couched in reassuring terms, of course, intended to mislead the people about the actual reality of the council's behavior. But that scripting of reassuring language is proof, giveaway, telltale sign of the council being convinced of the council's corrupt controllers and the clique being convinced that the perception and the public image of the council as a corrupt council needs to be changed. Not for the sake of it, not for the quality of the democracy and accountability that the council should deliver, but for the image of the council to be kept in such a way or floated in a way that kind of rubs off on the careers in positions in the council so that they can say we are doing the right thing, etc. Now, the behavior of Jackie Odunoy in 2013 shows that the council is staffed by liars, and the liars are part of the corruption conspiracy being done by the holder of the post of elected mayor. For example, in the July 2015 full council meeting, since the 11th of June 2015 election of John Biggs to the post held previously by Luthuraman, the diminutive denier of the truth, John Biggs, claimed that he had known me, Muhammad Haque, for 30 years. Well, this is now 35 years, if that is correct. He said that completely on the assumption that I didn't notice the stupidity and corruption of his apparent recognition of me, having known me for 30 years. Because I was there asking questions about the corruption by Towners Council post holders. I put a direct question to the council meeting on that date and that occasion in July 2015. And instead of answering my question and demand about the need to identify the crooks and end corruption in the council, this liar, John Biggs, aggravated his outrageous unfitness for purpose in the post by claiming that he had known me for 30 years. Anyone can say they have known me for 30 years if they have been watching the community and its defense by myself, its advocacy by myself, not just 30 years, even longer. So the fact that Biggs said he had known me for 30 years is part of the evidence that he had known me as the campaigner, as the opponent of corrupt council and corrupt post holders and careerists. He didn't say that, but that is what he was meaning. That is the only way he could have known me, because I'm not a personal friend of his. So I have no kind of occasion or event where I would meet him or have any social time together with him. Only way he would know of me, about me, would have been in the very public kind of domain, based on my activities and my work and my principles and my voicing the kind of demands on behalf of the people and on behalf of myself as well. So if Biggs was not lying in July 2015, and if he meant that by knowing me for 30 years, he had also noticed my role in opposing corruption, suppression of democracy, suppression of people's rights, then he would have answered the question. But he didn't. So therefore, he was lying there. Even when it is factually true, he had known me for decades. Whether it's 30 years or longer, doesn't make any difference to the actual reality of his behavior, which is that he was complacent in covering up and hiding the lies and corruption that my question was addressing, action and demanding action on. Now, the fact that Afsana Begum has been charged is not evidence that the council is going to charge every housing fraudster, every liar in the council, either a former employee of the council or currently in post as an employee of the council. And we have to look at the details of the lies that Jackie O'Donoghue perpetrated in 2013, and we shall be doing that in the next part. For technical reasons, we are breaking here.